What is the rarest item in TF2? In a game where weapons and unusuals are traded for real-world money, what particular item carries the most rarity? Maybe something iconic like the Burning Flames team captain. Maybe a weapon that's statistically rarest like the Macaw mass dual weapons. Or maybe even a now unobtainable glitched weapon like the painted cow manglers. These are all valid candidates for the rarest item in all of the Badlands, but none of these items can really stand on their own. A mere effect added to the team captain takes it from a value of 41 cents to 319 actual dollars, so these items aren't rare on their own so much as they're rare because of effects attached to them. So for me, that disqualifies them. Additionally, I think it's weird to call isolated incidents like the Top Notch or glitched weapons like the Painted Cow Mangler rare because they couldn't be obtained by normal people through normal means. No, there's only one item in all of TF2 that regular people could get without any effects, modifications, or glitches. The rarest normal item in TF2, the Golden Wrench. This weapon was handed out by Valve to 101 lucky players, a prize for the most dedicated members of the game. According to the developers, the players receiving the wrench would be chosen at complete random. A random time, a random date, a random server, and a random player. This was the rhetoric that permeated the TF2 community, as they all collectively clamored for the chance to strike gold. But unbeknownst to the players, it was all a lie, and the lottery they all thought was random was actually rigged from the start. Today we're going to tell the story of how one determined hacker uncovered one of the biggest controversies TF2 had ever seen. This is how TF2's rarest item got hacked. Our story starts on July 1st, 2010. Late into the night, a patch was released for TF2. Nothing crazy, just some bug fixes, updates for the server browser, and some visual changes. That said, it was common, especially during this era of TF2 history, for players to go straight into the game's code after each patch to see specifically what had changed. And this was no different. A user on the Spuff TF2 forums named Maginaut went digging to find what the patch had updated about TF2. Where they expected to find some lightweight changes to the game, they instead found something much more fascinating. Files for a brand new weapon, complete with a model, in-game logic, and some sort of announcement message attached to it. Maginaut was likely shocked by what they'd found, sharing it with fellow TF2 players in an attempt to get to the bottom of it. It was quickly discovered that a number of secrets had been hidden within the game's files as part of this seemingly unimportant patch added earlier that day. User Imee made the most important discovery within the game's GCF files, which had a hidden image buried within them. This image led to a coded message from none other than Saxton Hale, an incredibly iconic character in TF2 lore.
Clearly this is more space than needed. I wonder what else was here.
All of this was immediately posted to Spuff, under a thread titled Secret Image Contained in Update, which gained massive amounts of traction on the forum and sent the community into a tailspin.
This thread seems to have taken on a life of its own, so I recommend you at least skim through some of the pages to get a better idea of how hectic it was last night when this update was released.
No one knew what to make of this. Maginaut speculated this was all a red herring for the upcoming Engineer update, a fake weapon meant to misdirect the community and get them hyped for whatever was coming. Others had conspiracies about the wrench, worries it would be an item with limited availability, and it seems that someone made a video of them implementing the wrench into the game before it ever came out. Though this supposed video has since become lost media, if it was ever real at all. Luckily for the community, they wouldn't have to wait long to get their answers about what this Golden Wrench was all about. And this wouldn't be the last time that the Golden Wrench's code and data would be manipulated. 3 days later, July 4th, it was a seemingly normal day for TF2 players. Full of Dust Bowl stalemates, Uber pushes, and angry chat messages that I definitely can't show on YouTube. An average day for the TF2 community in 2010. Then, all of a sudden, an announcement was sent to every TF2 player at once. The spark that would ignite the wildfire. The first Golden Wrench had been found. This immediately sent shockwaves across the TF2 community. Thousands of people realized that some sort of event was happening, and news spread quickly that crafting was the key to finding this rare item. One after another, more and more announcements were sent out, as 24 more players gradually found a total of 25 golden wrenches on the historic July 4th. This was a big day for TF2, but it was only the beginning of what would be known as the Golden Wrench Scandal. On July 5th, the TF2 developers released a blog post announcing that the golden wrenches were being released as part of the upcoming engineer update. For every 25 wrenches that were crafted, they'd reveal one part of the upcoming engineer update. They also stated that there were 100 golden wrenches total, making for 4 total announcements, and confirmed that the wrenches were only able to be found through the crafting system. Most importantly for our story today, they heavily implied that these wrenches were being dropped randomly, and that, quote,
"Wrenches can be found up until the 100th wrench has gone out. There is no per-day limit on the number of wrenches found, and distribution has been designed to be fair for all time zones."
The slot machine had been set up and placed in the backpack of every single TF2 player, leading many to spend hours upon hours of their lives over the next several days trying desperately to get a brand new shiny wrench, wasting hundreds if not thousands of items in the process. The developers had created their very own lottery, and TF2 players were constantly trying over and over again to win big. This was the state of TF2 at the time, the setting for our story. And no story is complete without its very own protagonist. Meet Tony Paloma, aka Drunken Fool, one of the biggest troublemakers in TF2 history. Living up to his name, he was an absolute magnet for chaos in the TF2 community between 2009 and 2011. He was most well known for creating the infamous TF2 Idler program that allowed players to constantly farm in-game items without even having the game open. This was such a prevalent problem that it led to Valve making an entire hat to commemorate those who didn't use the program. He also created TF2items.com, a website that's still up today, which allows you to view other players' backpacks, as well as Source OP, a plugin that helps admins run servers for Source games. Basically, he was an incredibly knowledgeable hacker and developer, a massively popular community figure, and someone who knew TF2 and its inner workings inside out. And he had already exploited the game once before to absolutely cripple the game's item system. In other words, he was the perfect person to completely break the Golden Wrench event, bringing TF2 to its knees one more time. Sometime between July 5th and July 7th, Drunken Fool, likely using some form of social engineering, managed to get his hands on some behind-the-scenes data from Valve. A TF2 leak that held within it some very concerning information. It was revealed that the Golden Wrench wasn't random at all. It was set to drop at predetermined times. Once the clock hit one of these times, the first player to craft an item afterwards would have a guaranteed 100% chance of getting a Golden Wrench. Everyone else was just wasting their time. Not only did Drunken Fool learn that the system worked this way, but he also, somehow, acquired a list of the exact times when Golden Wrenches would drop, down to the second. This meant that the supposedly randomized lottery Valve had established was really all predetermined. It was a first-come, first-serve for whichever player happened to hit these imaginary times, and everyone else was throwing their items away for nothing. When Drunken Fool learned of this information, he had a delightfully devilish idea. On July 8th, 2010, Drunken Fool would enter a server running his Source OP plugin, and tell everyone in voice chat to all try crafting simultaneously at one specific time. This led to an immortal moment in TF2 history, when Valve's casino fell all at once like a house of cards.
Wait, are we about to have a drop? Yeah. What time?
I'm trying in case you're actually right about it.
Real soon? Like what? Half a minute?
Coming up. I'll count it down even.
Oh god.
Count it down, do it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
God, I can't start.
I win.
This was in an age before loot boxes and crates, before these items were worth real-world money, before people were scamming each other in an effort to get their backpacks filled with gaudy unusual effects. This wasn't done for money, it was done for passion. Drunken Fool didn't know these people. He didn't know Derek, he didn't even know if this would work, but he wanted a golden wrench and he wanted to give one to a random TF2 player. And to reveal that the supposed randomness the TF2 devs propped up was never real at all. It was all manufactured, and the thousands upon thousands of items thrown into the void in an effort to get a golden wrench were all for nothing, because golden wrench number 51 went to a random TF2 player named Derek. Shortly after this event, Valve would issue VAC bans for both Drunken Fool and Derek, removing access to their Steam accounts and erasing the golden wrenches from existence. This event caused mass outrage from the TF2 community, for a multitude of reasons. Though banning Drunken Fool for using a hacked data leak to game a supposed lottery was understandable, people were utterly dumbfounded that Derek, a random, unassuming TF2 player with no ties to Drunken Fool, was banned simply for acting on a random hunch given to him by some dude in a TF2 server. Potentially hundreds of dollars in Steam games was rendered inaccessible for following a simple request from a rando. It was utterly absurd, an overcorrection, and many protested Valve's harsh punishment for something so innocuous. Yet, Valve never relented, and Derek's Steam account is still VAC banned today, making him the first player ever to be manually VAC banned by Valve themselves.
Drunken Fool is a good man, and he always has been. Neither of them deserve the ban.
There was also a tremendous amount of backlash from people complaining that the system they thought was a fair, random selection was actually heavily biased from the start. The leak from Valve got spread through enough people before it was stopped that a number of other golden wrenches were hacked afterwards using the same method that Drunken Fool used. Reports conflict on just how many wrenches needed to be revoked by Valve, with some suggesting that as many as 7 golden wrenches were fraudulently obtained before the plug was pulled. There was so much misinfo that it became difficult for players to know if they ever had a chance of winning at all.
We all know the golden wrench was not only not random, but the times when it would drop were leaked. Shouldn't we have do-overs? Yeah, Valve kinda screwed us big time on this one. This event became corrupt the second it was released. The fact is, people cheated, and the whole thing is now tainted and corrupt. We don't know who legitimately earned it and who didn't.
People also hated just how limited these wrenches were from the start. 100 wrenches were a drop in the bucket compared to the tens of thousands of users playing TF2 on a weekly basis, and the exclusivity was unprecedented for Valve at the time. These wrenches were unspeakably rare, so obtaining one was seen as a status symbol, and a way to set some players above others. Unfortunately for these detractors, Valve would add unusual effects in the not-so-distant future, which functioned very similarly and costed real-world currency to obtain. Drunken Fool, while maligned by some for cheating to get the wrench for a random TF2 player, was generally seen as something of a mythical figure in the community. Someone who wanted to expose the truth about Valve and their dealings behind the scenes, and was silenced by the powers that be for his efforts.
Why couldn't you use your powers for good and not evil? Evil would have been selling drop times to premium subscribers.
The whole situation was a PR disaster for Valve themselves, and arguably the biggest controversy that TF2 had faced since its release in 2007. It sowed a lot of distrust in the devs for many players at the time who felt like their dedication to the game was completely wasted, and also caused many to consider destroying their wrenches out of a sort of protest against Valve's actions. This all eventually culminated in the announcement of the Golden Charity event later that July, run by the disgruntled receiver of Golden Wrench number 31, Wingspan TT.
In my infinite wisdom, I've decided that perhaps Golden Wrench 31 is better served destroyed than remaining to exist. I've chosen to run a fundraiser to benefit the Child's Play charity, culminating in the destruction of the Golden Wrench.
This charity event would be a positive spin on the whole ordeal, allowing for the TF2 community to direct their negative energy in a positive direction, by destroying the Golden Wrench and giving money to charity in the process. Valve co-signed the event and showed their support, with TF2 developer Robin Walker emailing Wingspan TT to personally endorse the event. This allowed the whole movement to garner a lot of popularity, which resulted in the raising of over $31,000 and the destruction of not one, but 14 Golden Wrenches, a positive outcome from one of the worst controversies in the history of TF2. And to think, All of this resulted from the actions of one lone mischief maker. This would be the last major event that Drunken Fool would actively participate in as a TF2 player. Instead, he would go on to become a TF2 developer. That's right, one of the most controversial, hectic figures in the TF2 community would be hired directly by Valve to help better the game's future as it moved into a new era.
I was sending Robin some email about some random mistake related to the Saxy. He jokingly said, "Someone's gonna want someone fired." So I took the opportunity to reply with my resume and said to see the attachment in case they need a replacement. I got the first interview shortly after that.
It seemed that Valve saw the value in Drunken Fool's knowledge base regarding TF2 and sought to utilize it to better the game rather than terrorize it. Hilariously, despite working at Valve and actively contributing to TF2 internally within the company, Drunken Fool's VAC ban didn't get revoked until 1 to 2 years after he was hired to work on TF2. I guess Valve doesn't give preferential treatment, even to its own employees. Looking back, this event exists as a mere blip in TF2's history, but a fascinating one nonetheless. A hacker, someone who managed to socially engineer a data leak to spread throughout the community, ruining one of the game's biggest updates, still managed to impress the company he messed with enough to get a job with them. It's one of the most wild pieces of TF2's lore, and one I was happy to tell you all today. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more obscure internet history, and have a good day.